Hello everybody, my name is Courtney. Welcome to my channel. This is where I talk about books I like, books I love, and everything in between. And it is already September, so that means I'm doing my August wrap up today, which is super weird because I feel like I just did my July wrap up. I actually had a really good month this month with all of my books. I think I chose like really good ones. I only DNF'd maybe 2. Let's just get right into it because your girl is having crampy cramps and was contemplating postponing this for next week's video, but we're here, we're doing it. I took some Advil, we're fine. Okay, in no particular order, I'm gonna go over all the books that I read this month. I'm going to start with King's Bride. It's the first in the Chronicles of Reyne by Beck. I absolutely adored this book, and I'm probably gonna be featuring it in many videos. Depending on what those videos are, I'm probably gonna be featuring it because it had so much to it. So King's Bride is a fairy tale retelling, sort of. It's very loosely a fairy tale retelling. It's loosely based on Beauty and the Beast. And I say loosely because there are aspects of Beauty and the Beast in it, but really it's its own thing. You have the society that I've mentioned before is very reminiscent of Viking society, how we would have imagined Vikings living. I feel like their names are very Norwegian, I could be wrong, but they live in this like land of snow. It's perpetually snowing, and the reason for that is because of the king that rules over the land. And they call him the Ice Phoenix and the King of Death, and there's a bunch of names for him. I can't really remember them, but they don't like him. A lot of the land does not like him at all because he keeps the land in this perpetual winter, and that makes it very difficult for tribes and societies to hunt and to feed their people. And specifically our main character, Suneva, I don't really know which way you pronounce it. The author did comment on one of my videos on TikTok and said that there is a pronunciation guide in the back of the book, and I don't know if I didn't get that far in the ebook or if it's only in the print book. Either way, I'm going to be buying the print book at some point, but I did not see that guide to pronunciation, so I kind of made up pronunciations in my head. Anyways, Suneva is one of the daughters of the, I guess he would be equal to like a Jarl or in like Viking society, but she is his daughter. She feels very responsible for his siblings because of a certain very dark and traumatic event that happened to her. And her father is just a cruel, horrible person. And it's really sad because he just like resents her, and she's always trying to get like his affection and his fatherly love, but it never happens. So he's an asshole. And in an effort to save somebody that she loves, Suneva goes to the king's castle and she steals one of his magical roses. That makes the king very mad. He comes for her and threatens to basically destroy her entire village. The king, who already kind of doesn't like the king, or not the king, her father, who doesn't really like the king very much, says, why don't you take my daughter as your wife, and that will ensure that we will always have allegiance to you, and there will be no rebellion because we will now be bonded through marriage. And the king, for some reason, says yes. And Suneva, after some events that occur in the book that I don't want to give away, she only agrees because she's planning to go be his wife and spend time with him and figure out a way to kill him. Because he may or may not be a god. We don't really, it's kind of unclear, especially in the beginning, exactly what he is. People don't really know what he is. There's kind of a lot of rumors around it. But there's really no way to kill him. And Suneva is dead set on marrying him and being close to him only to figure out a way to kill him. The book is long and it follows a lot of their journey together, and I just really liked it. I love the way that they grew together. I love the way that secrets kind of unfolded. I love the way that they started to understand each other and their past and the reasons for doing the things that they did. And it all kind of builds up to this like really beautiful love story. The next book that I read is called And you may or may not have seen this video because I already made a complete, like an entire video dedicated to this book. It is Planet Oster, Fertility Fusion by Joelle, Lagosz, and Vera Valentine. It is weird. So it is an alien romance reverse harem Omegaverse, and it follows a trio of bunny-like aliens. If you haven't seen my other video, I recommend going to watch it because I go into full detail about this book and how weird and crazy this whole story was. But basically, these three guys are part of what is called a cluster, and that is kind of like a mating family on their planet of Oster. And so it consists of two alphas and an omega. The omega produces eggs, they need to find a beta to kind of complete their cluster, because the beta is the one that takes the eggs and incubates the eggs and gives birth to the babies. Their dream is to have a family, but they don't have somebody to carry their eggs. They find that beta in a human woman while they are at some sort of a spaceport or something, and they invite her into their group, and they kind of trade services, as weird as that sounds. So she needs their help, and they need her to carry their eggs. And so it kind of becomes an exchange of services, but then it grows into something more, and it becomes like a love story between all of these weird bunny aliens and this woman. It's a thoroughly bizarre book, and I will have a link to the full video in the comments. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you watch it because it was an adventure. The next book that I read this month was actually for kind of a book club type of situation that I am in on Instagram, and it is called What's Handed Down by Joelle Cullen, and it's not technically it's not a genre that I typically would read. I'm very much into like sci-fi and fantasy books. This book follows a woman who recently lost her mother, who she was very, very close to. And she is a musician, she plays piano, and it follows her as when she goes to England for a concert. And it's kind of a slow burn romance, but I wouldn't call it completely romance because it focuses a lot on her struggles with her mother's death, her struggles with following her dream, her general relationships with people around her and people that she meets in England and people that she knows from back home. And then it kind of has like this little love story that's really cute between her and this guy that she meets at a cafe. They have a really cute relationship. This book is really, in my review, I actually said that it was something that is very close to home. Like, it's something that is very relatable. Everybody in the book was very relatable. If you are into contemporary romance with a lot of emotions, I would highly recommend reading it. The next book that I read was, well, I said this is in no particular order. This is just the order that I wrote them down. And that is Sea of Roses by Opal, Reyne. But I was looking for pirate romance, which is kind of difficult to find, to be honest. Like, good ones, at least, are difficult to find, or unique ones. And this, I think, might be on my top 10 list currently for good romance adventure books. It is a pirate romance. So you have this very mean captain. His name is Alistair Payne, of all things, and he is very well known among pirates and other people because he is just very ruthless. Everybody knows him as being very ruthless. It starts out with him, and he sees this ship that he wants to, you know, plunder or raid, whatever you call it. And he goes after it. And most times, you know, if you see a pirate ship, you run. But this ship decides to turn around and fight him, which he thinks is very weird, but he goes along with it anyways. And one of his men comes back after they're like raiding this ship. He comes back and he says there's a woman in the captain's quarters. And Alistair Payne, being a ruthless pirate, has a code, and he does not like harming innocent women. And so he decides to jump back on the sinking ship and save this innocent woman who was clearly being taken advantage of and kept captive by whoever the captain of the ship was. He takes her onto the ship. She acts like this crying damsel in distress. Turns out she is the captain of that ship, and she had acted out this role to steal his ship, and she does very successfully. And maroons him, or doesn't maroon him, she puts him on a little boat that goes to some other like pirate port or something. And she goes about her merry way, which is on, well, it's not really a merry way because she's on a very specific mission. She has a very specific goal, and her entire crew is extremely loyal and extremely willing to go down with her if this mission fails. And so she needed his ship, which is basically a battleship, to do whatever she's doing. And then from that point on, Alistair swears that he's gonna get his ship back and he's going to get revenge. And he does eventually come back and he gets the ship and he holds her captive. And it's very much like they're butting heads. They are extremely attracted to each other, but also they hate each other, and they also both have their different agendas that they're both trying to the different goals that they're trying to achieve. And so they're kind of fighting against each other constantly. And I loved their dynamic. I loved their characters. I loved their relationship. I loved that it was so casual and so physical, but also developed into something more kind of towards the end. I will say that it is part of I believe it's a duology, so there's 2 books. I haven't read the second one yet, but I absolutely plan to, because it ends in a way that I cannot allow. I need to read the second book. But all in all, they're such a fierce pair, and I love them both, and I love the side characters. I love everything. The way that Opal wrote this book, I was hearing Pirates of the Caribbean, I was hearing Jack Sparrow, I was hearing like the perfect pirate setting with this extremely steamy romance involved, and I just absolutely loved it. I finished it, I think, in like 2 nights or something, so absolutely recommend it. The final book on my list, and after you hear this one, you'll kind of know that I'm building a certain list of a certain genre here on this channel that I plan on releasing on a certain day. But anyways, the last one I have on my list is Captive of the Pirate King, and it is the first book in the Dark Rulers series by Rebecca F. Kenney. Captive of the Pirate King starts out with this girl whose ship she is looking for her brother. That is her mission. And in any pirate book, they're going to mention that having women on board is bad luck, and there's always going to be some sort of conflict with that. So she's on this boat, on the ship, and she is looking for her brother. At the beginning of the book, we don't know why, and I'm not going to tell you why because you have to read the book. But she is in search of her brother who disappeared. This pirate ship attacks her ship, and she is taken captive, or she knows she's going to be taken captive. So at the very last second, she kind of holds herself up in a room, cuts her hair off, dresses up in boys' clothes, binds her breasts, and she is taken captive. And I didn't actually know this was true. I actually asked somebody about this, but I guess when you raid a ship or you pillage a ship, or I don't know what it's called, when you take a ship, you either kill people or you take them into the crew. And because she's dressed as a cabin boy, then she is taken into the crew, or she's given the choice at least. And because I think she's a boy, she becomes kind of a worker on this ship, but she has to hide the fact that she is a woman. One of these crew members kind of gets the idea very early on because he's the one that carried her onto the boat. So he got to feel her up. And it's about their relationship. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot of twists and turns. There's a lot of secrets that are revealed, a lot of mysteries, a lot of questions. The underlying story is those two building a relationship. There is magic involved. There are a lot of people in this world that can do magic, including both the main characters. That is another thing that I don't want to talk about because I think that you should read it and find out the whole backstory behind that. But it is a very fantastical, piratey world, and I really, really enjoyed it. Those are the books that I read, and I loved every single one of them, and I would recommend every single one of them. I will be talking more in depth about them when I make other lists because I have a lot of videos that I want to do. But until then, I appreciate all of you being here and watching my videos. If you would like this video, that would really help. Comment on the video books that you've read or books that you recommend. And follow me if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!